think the unique thing about the book, and I'm going to ask Ray for his own thoughts on it, is that this book reaches out to the family for the first time, especially of Jim Morrison. So for the first time ever, the father of Jim Morrison, Admiral George Steve Morrison, talks about his son, because for so long, especially among Doors fans, it was thought that Jim was so estranged from his family. He never spoke to them, never had contact with them through all the years of the Doors. His rock and roll success years were without his family. Well, literally that was probably true, but on the other side of it, we finally find out that they had emotions, they had thoughts. They reached out to him over those years. And so that's one of the things that we find out from the book. And the other thing too is also, again, shattering some mythology. That Jim was so erratic in his behavior, his intake of alcohol and drugs, that the band was always pissed off at him. You find out from talking to the guys, all these many years later, that in fact they really did gel as a musical unit. They loved playing together, and one of their greatest triumphs was coming full circle in their 6th album, L.A. Woman, going back to the garage in a way by converting their rehearsal space, their offices on Santa Monica, into their final recording studio. That's where they made L.A. Woman. What did you get from the book that you had not seen from other books about the Doors or about Jim Morrison?
This is a totally unique book. It's Rashomon. What you get from my book is the truth. What you get from John Densmore's book is a psychodrama of a man trying to figure out, which side he's on. And Robbie hasn't written a book yet, and Danny and Jerry Hopkins wrote No One Here Gets Out Alive. Very good. Everyone's read that one. My book is better than that, but this one is. If you haven't read my book, so what the hell? What difference does it make? I only explain LSD and God. No wonder it didn't sell. But this one is totally unique in that it's Rashomon. It's got all the Doors. Everybody's got a different take on the story. So you get Jim Morrison and the Doors looked at from the perspective of a whole bunch of different people.
Very intelligent, bright young man, and behaved himself pretty well, really. And he liked to write and draw pictures.
He was an avid reader. He read everything, and then he also wrote. He would write he had a book, and this was in high school, he would learn a new word, and then he'd write a whole story around it. So his vocabulary was incredible.
He liked all the classics and read everything he could get his hands on. And he was always delighted to go to his grandmother's house because she had a library.
One time he just got up out of class and told his teacher he was going to have a brain tumor removed, and he just walked out of class to go read. When he graduated from high school, he asked my parents for the complete works of Nietzsche. Most kids want a car. I think my brothers and I were pretty close because we moved a lot. So whenever we moved, we were just the ones we knew.
The life that I lived as a naval officer required that you to have a period ashore and a period at sea, which meant that probably half the time I was gone. I tried to make him feel like he was the head of the household, and he tried to take care of his mother while I was gone. He went on all the ships that I served in. It was clear that while he had some admiration for the Navy and the fact that I was in it, but he didn't have any interest in it himself to be a sailor or to be an officer.
He was 3 years older, but 4 years in grades. So by the time I was in high school, he was in college.
I thought he would have a success because he was smart and creative and could write well. We were delighted he went to college. He started it out in Florida. I wanted to get him to go to graduate school. We had read, of course, about the film school at UCLA, and I was looking forward to his graduating and going into Hollywood.
USS C. Turner Joy and Maddox were in the Gulf of Tonkin when radar images indicated they were being approached by speeding vessels. Both destroyers fired repeatedly into the stormy night.
The Lyndon Johnson administration then used that as a reason to pass a resolution through Congress, which was written in a rather open-ended fashion, which gave the President of the United States authority to take what actions necessary.
Renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin have today required me to order the military forces of the United States to take action in reply.
The Johnson administration used that as a rationale for a dramatic escalation as far as numbers of troops are concerned and offensive activities, particularly airstrikes in North Vietnam. That resolution is still very controversial to this day. Historians argue about whether there was an actual attack or not, and if so, how serious it was.
Senator John McCain served in the U.S. Navy for 22 years as a naval aviator, and he witnessed firsthand the impact of the Gulf of Tonkin resolution.
All but one of these men who flew to freedom in this latest release were shot down during some of the fiercest fighting of the war, 17 months from July 1967 to November 1968. Right behind him came the man who was probably the best known of this group of prisoners, Lieutenant Commander John S. McCain, III. He was also the most seriously marked by his 5.5 years of imprisonment. But his smile was broad as he saluted and shook hands with Admiral Guyler, who replaced McCain's own father, Admiral John S. McCain, Jr., as Pacific Forces commander.
John McCain was 31 on the day that changed his life. He was flying an A-4 Skyhawk on his 23rd run. He had just dropped a bomb when an enemy missile would tear one of the wings off his bomber. He ejected, and the sheer force of that moment would break both of his arms and one of his legs. The Vietnamese would pull him out of the water and beat him. McCain's father and grandfather were both famous admirals before him, and while being filmed, you hear him being asked his name.
What is your name?
Lieutenant Commander John McCain.
Unable to use his hands, he had to be fed by his captors. the Vietnamese only treating his wounds after they realized who he was.
I think you have a famous name. Yes.
The Vietnamese would make an offer. They would let him go home, hoping it would be a PR coup, given how famous his family was. But John McCain would refuse, unwilling to break the code. The first man captured must be the first man out. John McCain was beaten when he told them he would not leave, that he would wait for his fellow prisoners.
I badly wanted to go home. I was tired and sick. I was often afraid. But I couldn't keep from my own counsel the knowledge of how my release would affect my father and my fellow prisoners.
And all these years later, we find a photo of John McCain on the wall. He would ultimately be among 591 prisoners released.
Commander John McCain.
Saluting the country he put before himself.